So for my latest update of my watch collection, I want to share with you my newest acquisition. It is a Rolex No Date Submariner 5513 1979. Well, here we are again. I feel like I always say that I'm not gonna buy another watch. I mean, it's like famous last words. This is the last watch I'm ever gonna buy. I mean, it happens all the time, not only to my clients, but to me as well. You see, the thing is that lately, since I deal with so many modern watches, and you know, at the end of the day, I almost feel like they all become one. Don't get me wrong, I still love my watches, you know, I can't live without them. But I feel like lately, more and more, I get that spark inside me whenever I see a nice vintage piece. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because they all have just this unique character, each one. No two vintage watches are the same. Even if they're brand new old stock, and they've never been touched, you get two vintage watches and they usually look different. So something about that lately for me that just kind of like gets me going, man. I don't know. Whereas the newer modern watches, even during the craze, you know, in the last 6 months, I would still see these watches and they still wouldn't really excite me that much. But when I see a nice vintage piece lately, it's kind of really exciting me. And this one, when I saw it, completely won me over. The minute that I saw the watch, I just couldn't believe it. Maybe it was just that nice look on that dial with that patina, everything nice and yellowed. Immediately got my attention. So a couple details about this watch. It's a 1979 5513 No Date, and it has the MK3 Maxi dial. It's nicknamed the Lollipop. I mean, where did they come up with these names? This one's actually pretty easy because the Maxi hour lume indicators are connected to the seconds indicators with the stick. I mean, pretty easy to understand that. A stick with a circle, Lollipop. But it's arguably one of the most desired dials from the 5513s. So it's almost like having that extra step, extra level of dial for the watch. By the way, when I bought that watch, I had no idea about this information. I just kind of had this attraction to it and I knew it had charm. So it's all these little details about the watch that obviously make it that much more desirable. Although when I bought it, I kind of really had no idea. These are the things that got my attention when I saw it. Number one, the nice yellowing and patina on the dials and the hands. I realized immediately that the hands were untouched and had almost like a crust buildup on it. You know, like of oxidation and stuff, which kind of looks great. It kind of gives it that dirty look on the hands. A friend of mine asked me the other day, well, why does that happen? Why would the hands oxidate and things like that? And it's very simple. It's just simple oxidation over time for many different reasons, okay? When these watches were built, and even today when the new watches are built, it's not like they're assembled in a complete vacuum where there's no air. There is some form of air inside of that watch case with some form of humidity. Also remember that these watches have different type of oils and things of that nature that can also long-term maybe release some substances, along with whatever they use for the lume, the paint for the dials, all those things trapped inside of a watch for 50 years, 40 years, causes different reactions. And that's what has happened here. When I saw that, I immediately said, okay, hands and the dial look good. Immediately what I also noticed was the insert was original, untouched, with the yellowing of the pearl indicator as well. So as I kept looking at it, then I really started getting excited. Why? Well, the watch has never been polished. The more I looked at it, the more I saw things that I liked more and more. I said, wow, damn, that's a nice Porsche. Look at that. Wow, white with red interior. That like threw me off guard there completely. So the more I looked at it, the more I saw things that I liked. The code on the clasp matched the year of the watch. Again, matching bracelet, which a lot of times when you got these older watches, sometimes the bracelet is not matching, because you know, the bracelets kind of take the bulk of the abuse, depending if they wore it loose, if they wore it too tight. These things don't necessarily kill the price of a watch, but they do affect it. So when I saw that it had the matching bracelet, it was that one thing that I just liked even more. Another thing I liked about it was that the dome plastic crystal had some scratches, but not too many. Sometimes the scratches are just a little bit too much with way too much character. And then if you kind of put a brand new one on, it kind of throws it off, you know, on that barn find, or with watches I like to call them drawer finds. You know, where this one had just enough little bit of character, just enough little scratches that, for me, got my attention and got the blood pumping. I just kind of liked it. So then what happens is I looked at it and I said, wow, untouched, possibly unopened, unpolished, 1979 5513 lollipop. I told my buddy, I said, you know, what's up? Is it for sale? He also does resell watches as well. So he got a bit tense, he tensed up a bit and said, well, Eric, you know, this is a super stellar watch with all the characteristics, you know, like giving me the whole spiel, you know? I could put that watch in auction. I said, look, listen, man, I want the watch. And he's like, I know, but it's kind of like I get it. It took him a lot of work to find this watch, and his plans were to sell it and turn out a very nice profit. But I said, look, I just want you to be fair. I need you to come up with a price, and I need you to just give me a price and I'm gonna buy it. Something that's fair for me, fair for you. So that day, I didn't even let him take the watch. I actually put it back in my safe, let me romance with it for the night and see what I want to do. And he had time to think about it, and the next day we came to an agreement, and I paid somewhere in the teens, which worked for both of us. Now, I really didn't know exactly what I was buying, but I knew that this price was gonna be good. Based just on gut and emotions, I pulled the trigger on this watch. Then I asked my buddy Adam, which is the expert in vintage watches, and to my surprise, he told me that everything looks perfect and that I made a great deal. I was like, whew! I mean, either way, I had committed to the deal. I wasn't gonna go back on it. But I love this watch, and I'm so happy because although I do have another No Date Sub, I feel like that one, it's got the encapsulated indicators on the dial, which means it has the white gold rings that goes around the indicators, which is not correct for the year. It's a service dial. And you know, it's just a little bit more of a beat up watch. It's been polished more. It was my first No Date. I wanted one. I only paid $10K for it at that time, so I'm not even that upset. But when I saw this one, this is the guy. So yes, vintage watches is something that's very intriguing, you know? These watches compel you to want to buy them. Yes, it's not comparable to, for example, wearing a stainless steel 41 skeleton. Two different ball games here. But these watches undeniably have value that will weather any storm. And one of the things that I love the most about vintage watches, lately at least, before I didn't really pay attention to them as much, even though I always did like them, is that this watch is unique. There is never gonna be another one exactly the same. There might be one that's a little bit better, and there might be one that's a little bit worse. But there is never gonna be one that's exactly the same, because God knows where these watches have been, or what they've done, or what they've seen. They all have their own story, and for me lately, that's kind of what I like. Now, the problem with vintage watches is who, when, and where you buy them, because that can also be a major thing. Lord knows there's a lot of people out there that bought watches thinking that they're something, and they're not. Whether the dealer that sold it to them did it intentionally, or they didn't know. So for me, right now I'm learning as much about vintage watches as possible, because I do have clients that want to buy them off of me, and I want to make sure that I provide them with the correct merchandise that they pay for. Also, if you're interested in buying or mostly selling a vintage watch, go ahead and reach out, whether it's email, phone call to the store, or DM on Instagram. So comment below what you think about my latest acquisition to my collection with my 5513 Maxi Dial No Date Sub. And if you like this video, like and share it. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel.